Good morning. It's April 24th, 2025, and we have a little channel business to take care of. If you don't care to hear this part, then you can jump ahead to the minute 30 mark. I don't have anything specific planned for the first part of May. However, I'd like to draw your attention to the little gold star. That is May 26th, that is Memorial Day, and that means May 25th. Missing Children's Day falls on the day before Memorial Day, and that is a holiday weekend. So we'll be working on the Find Me Junk Journal updates the week before that. So on May 18th, which is a Sunday, and on May 22nd, which is a Thursday. And if you have plans for this upcoming Memorial Day weekend, it'll be here for you in the playlist as we proceed on, and you can catch up with us maybe that following week or in the early part of June. Every year for the last couple of years, we have honored Missing Children's Day by working on or featuring our Find Me Junk Journal. And if you forget or if you have skipped this part, then I'll be sure and remind you again once or twice in the month of May. What are we doing today? We're doing an experimental piece as a test for an element we might use on our cover. And I've called it temporarily a dimensional focal cluster, which is kind of cumbersome and probably doesn't mean anything to you. So let's turn the camera on and see what we can come up with. I put some tools up that you don't normally see me list, but one of them is a bookmaker's tool. And the first thing I'm going to do once I clear the decks and thin out my very thick black tempera paint is to cover both my spine and the cardboard pieces that will serve as the raised areas in this cover. What did I call it? Raised cluster something, whatever. This is about, 18 minutes of me doing all this stuff. And I realized that the marks that I had made on the front of the book might not show up if I uh, cover it with black paint. As, as it happens, I thinned down my black paint too much. It was very thick. And so it doesn't cover the front of the book very well. I'm not worried about that. I can always, fix that um, as this technique that I'm doing for the cluster goes on. And what I can cover it with paper, I can do all kinds of stuff, or I can use black acrylic paint, or I can scuff up the orange part of the book boards because the paint just didn't have anything to adhere to, as you will see. Also, there are some spots that are resisting the paint because those are glue spots, and you'll see that as well. I've sped this up so it's only about 5 minutes, and we're even going to speed through that because we have a few other things to do. So let's jump to what the end of this looked like in a minute. I want you to see the pieces I'm actually base coating with black tempera paint as well. This is a doubled up piece of chipboard. I did coat both sides so that the piece of chipboard wouldn't warp very much. And coating the second side, even though it won't be seen, and it will be glued down to the front of the book cover, uh, helped it not to warp, and I ended up with a pretty flat piece. I also have a little piece of chipboard that's got a window cut out of it that will serve as some kind of book plate or, raised marker of some sort. I haven't decided exactly if I'm going to put the date in there or a title, or I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it will go on the front of this piece as part of this three-dimensional cluster. Um, and I use some tweezers to be able to get the paint on there because I don't want it dripping all over the place and making a mess, even though I make a mess anyway. Now, I will put a picture and a link to the creator's channel in show notes where I saw this technique done. He did a very lovely, elaborate um, technique or depiction of this technique. And I'm not going to go the 9 miles that he went to do what he did. I'm keeping mine very simple and straightforward because I've never used mica powder in this way before. I've only ever used it casting compounds or UV resin. So this will be a new technique for me, and that's why I'm trying to keep it very simple as I blow that um, little cutout frame a little bit to get it to dry a little quicker. And now we'll move on to the next step. This is Mike Deakin's altered book journal cover, and he did a marvelous job. Now, this is not my style per se. I do like the burnished metal look, but pearlized and metallicized just isn't my style. So I'm still undecided what exactly I'm going to do, but let's move on to that gluing down of all the elements and see what happens. It's a couple days later, Tuesday after Resurrection Sunday, and I laugh at myself because turning the camera on lately has become quite the risky business. But on a brighter note, I think I know why. I think that my SD card is failing, and so, I'll have to get another one. Let's just stumble our way through this. Pretty easy to see that what I did was finish painting the outside of the cover with black. I put down a piece of scrim tape and then painted over it with some blue acrylic because I wanted some stark contrast for that copper leafing that I put down just randomly, whatever I could pick out of the jar with some tweezers. That's what I put down. And then I overcoated it with some clear glue just to make sure that it stays down. We're going to speed through this next part because all it is me gluing down some patterned leather strips that have kind of a coppery, what do I want to say, a coppery imprint on them. I guess I forgot to show you on camera what the whole thing looked like, but I will do that. This is turning out to be a little bit outside my style, but I'm not unhappy with it because I love copper and my intention is to sort of harmonize that blue and copper by using these leather strips. I'll probably fasten them on the inside with some brads so that they will stick down. And the glue I'm using is Fabri-Tac because it dries pretty quickly and it will not mess up any of the um, outside cover. I'm also hitting the sides of that little nameplate kind of thing with an antique gold chrome pen, which will give it a metallic look. And probably I'm going to treat that a little bit to make it look more like copper, or maybe I will distress it further with some black mica or something like that so that it doesn't stand out and draw your attention away from the copper too much. I'm still a little undecided what I'm going to do with that rectangular plate overlapping the copper and the scrim tape, but I'm tempted to cut out the center and make it a frame. And if I do that, I may very well add that copper leather to the top of it, which kind of takes us way away from what Mike did for his cover for his altered book, in that he used all mica. The leather is a fabric sample from somebody's upholstery samples, and these are some of my favorite things he used from when I was a child. My dad had fabric sample books from actually a manufacturer's representative, and I had piles and piles of brocades and silks and satins and all kinds of jazz. So I really love using it. And in this case, I've had this leather for almost 10 years. Since I'm on a copper roll here, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? I've covered with super glue as my adhesive some brass brads for these straps that are going across the spine, and I'm using copper leaf again. And before I forget, here's what that leather looks like. It's sort of a snakeskin kind of pattern. It's dyed dark blue, and then it's embossed, and then they hit it with uh, copper colorant. Now we're going to mess around with some mica finally, and we're going to use navy blue. Mike used Liquitex matte medium, and mine has up and walked away and gone on vacation. So instead, I'm going to use it, tack it over and over as my liquid. And apparently, I've gotten lost and gone off camera. So here's a little silicone bowl. I'm going to put in a 30-second of a teaspoon in that little bowl, and then I'm going to put in some tack it over and over again and put all the open containers away so I don't spill them everywhere. I'm going to paint that around the edges of uh, the top or the surface of that black rectangle. That's our focal feature. And I'm going to let it dry, and it remains tacky a little bit for quite a while. So that gives me the opportunity to overcoat that navy blue edging with green or copper or what have you. And I'm just testing it on the back to see if it's going to show up, and it will. So that's all good. Let's get out the tack it over and over again. The bottle you saw me shaking to death is some spray. It is a really beautiful dusty blue. You've seen it before. However, it comes in a horrendous pump bottle, although they did put a ball bearing in it. So cheers to them for that. The pump clogs up or the stem comes off, and you get big blobs everywhere. So I have decanted some of that into a small spray bottle, and I've cut it with water. It can take a fair amount of cutting with water, and in the small spray bottle it sprays a mist. You might get some drops. I got one, but I think it was from the original bottle. So you'll see that in a minute as I struggle to get some kind of line down all the sides of this piece. I will tell you that I've gone ahead and oversprayed that rectangular piece with that blue, which you'll see in a couple minutes, and it looks really cool. And I wish, even in the back of my brain, one neuron was off coffee break and screaming at me, don't put the pieces of leather down because you're not sure what else you're going to do to this outside of this cover. And, I ignored that one diligent neuron and, you know, glued down those leather pieces. Now, what I can do is cover those leather pieces with tape and spray the back of it, not the front of it, because the front's already got too much going on. But I can spray the back of it, and that will mimic what you're gonna see on this front piece. I will tell you that I have no idea where to go with this front piece after that, other than putting on the little book plate type thing that we made and used chrome pen on. I may just leave it. We'll see what happens because I just don't know what I'm going to put on that front cluster piece. What I can tell you is the blue overspray I did on the rectangle does not show up on camera. It dried darker, and so it blends in with the black background a lot. But now we're going off the deep end. We're going to muck around with some actual mica powders that you thought we'd never get to it. So the first one I have is Blackberry by Nurture Soap. It is a very deep purple, almost black if you don't get a good enough coat on there. And I'll be honest with you. Number one, I didn't use a second coat of Tack It over and over again. And I got a little nervous about would this turn out to be a muddy mess. Cut to the chase, no, it did not. So let's speed on to the next color I use. Now, this looks like a super bright apple-ish light green. It might even be called apple green. I don't have it in front of me while I'm doing voiceovers. But because it's against a black background, it went on and it only lightened sort of that um, vignette area that I'm creating. You can see the green mica reflecting, but it's very, very subtle. And I think I'm going to do a couple more touch-up things. Oh, I thought I was going to use this mica, but as it turns out, it comes out sort of a brick red. So I just went and sprayed the whole thing with fixative. So we're going to move on to the brads that I put copper leaf on, and we're going to put them in so that we don't accidentally take our straps off. I will say this, I never am successful lining up holes to be punched that are across from each other, no matter what I do with the Crocodile Big Bite. I'm thankful that it has the extra long jaws so that I can make holes like this, because there's no way I could make these holes even with a leather punch by hand. But inevitably, they never line up. And you know what? I just live with it. So we'll get these brads in, and then we have a couple more little touch-up things to do. I will be using some Fabri-Tac and some tape over these brad tails before I put anything in, and I use my spatula to kind of press open the wings and or tails or what have you, and make sure that they're not pulling or what have you. One of the things I'm going to do as a touch-up is try and knock the shine down off those brads a little bit. I would love if I had some true verdigris since we covered them with copper. So I'm going to pull out a giant tub of black oxide, which is used either for soap or for UV resin or for casting compounds. And I have a giant one because casting compounds generally, because they're pigmented white with usually titanium dioxide, any black that you put in them, no matter how much you load it up, and there's only so much you can use in a casting compound, it comes out charcoal gray. So I have it, I might as well use it. I'm using a very, very little tiny amount just to go over the top of those brads and darken them a little bit. Again, I wish I had verdigris. That would be awesome. I'm going to do the same thing to our little nameplate or whatever we're calling it. And then I hear that same neuron who never took a lunch break start barking at me, stop, don't do anything more. And, for once I listened to that vigilant, kind neuron who's barking at me, and I stopped. And the reason I stopped is because the center of that long piece that's our focal point, I just don't have anything to put in it. I love some copper watch gears or maybe a copper butterfly or something, but I just don't have anything to hand that's really, screaming at me. You've had this for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years or whatever. Use me. So this is as far as we're going to go today. There doesn't seem to be much reason to keep pushing on when I just really don't know what I'm going to do. And to be honest, with what we've done so far, I could go in any direction. Like I said, butterfly, copper watch gears, a unicycle, a hot air balloon, who knows? What I do know is that I'm happy with as far as I've gotten. So there's our final shot for today. I have no idea what we're going to do on Sunday, but I guess we'll all be surprised together. Thank you so much for joining me. God bless you. I'll see you real soon.